Hey, everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of people in my network. So these are great leads. I'll be interviewing on those books. I want to get to the books that have impacted them the most, or at least a lot, on what they do in their personal life, their leadership, their business, their work. And the kind of books I'll be covering are books that I haven't read that they're schooling me on, books that we've both read, the guest and I, whether in a previous life or specifically for the series, or one that they've written or have had a hand in publishing and getting out there. In this particular episode, my guest will be Randye S. Spina. And Randye is a native New Yorker. She's the founder and managing director of Marketing on a Mission, a marketing consultancy specializing in working with mission driven social enterprises. Prior to this, she led Affordable Marketing Solutions, a small business marketing agency, for 13 years. She's on the board of Arts Alliance of Stratford and serves as their marketing director. In a previous life, she was vice president of marketing and new product development at a financial services company, and she was the first general manager of the startup co-branded credit card division of a global travel company. She's the author of Affordable Marketing Solutions, Proven Techniques to Profitably Market Your Small Business, and an award-winning adjunct professor of marketing and communications. She was nominated for an Echo Award for the record-breaking launch of a new credit card product and has been nominated for several higher education awards. And she's a former board member of the Direct Marketing Association of Orange County, California. So Randy's been all over the place at different organizations and different capacities and different lives. Um, obviously, I read this bio for the benefit of the listener, the viewer, whoever's watching and listening. But Randy and I have gotten into her past as much as I've shared mine. We've gone back and forth. So I know that Randy has just kind of experienced it all, worked hard through all these various areas. But Randy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here. As an avid and voracious reader, this is right up my alley.
I'm glad. And I always do appreciate when I come across somebody else that has that kind of addiction to books and just learning from different areas. So I appreciate it. So why don't we start with you telling me who you are today? What's your background? What's your profession? What is it you deliver for your own business, your own organization, and the businesses that you work with?
Right now, I am working in my new venture, Marketing on a Mission, which is a pivot from the agency that I had for the past 13 years. Life events, world events, got me thinking about really where is my passion and where do I want to put my energy, my time, my expertise. And having affordable marketing solutions and working with small business clients for all those years and writing a book and doing workshops and teaching was all wonderful. But I kind of outgrew it a little bit. I wanted to focus more. We follow each other on LinkedIn. So you know that I declared focus as my word for the year for 2022. So back in the summer, like late summer, July, August, I just really had like an intuitive hit, honestly, about what I should be doing. And I you know, First step for me is usually creatively looking around GoDaddy and seeing, what URLs are available. And I started doing some of the research in this industry. I became very, very drawn to the concept of B corporations and B Corp certified companies. And I started networking and contacting a lot of management consultants who specialize in this area. One has become just a wonderful center of influence for me and has sent me clients. So they are, this whole world just really appealed to me. Not that I didn't like my former clients, that's not it at all, but I just felt really drawn and called. My sense of activism just like rose up like a fire in me. And I thought, how can I apply my marketing and communication skills and all of my experience to this sounds cheesy, but help the world become a better place? and to really focus in and narrow in on the types of companies I want to help. Industry aside, it doesn't really matter. Because are everything from financial services to education to, it's all over the place, cosmetics. Um, and so I just felt pulled. I can't explain it any other way. Like I really just woke up one morning with this idea in my head. And once I get like that, there's no
Oh, I know.
stopping me.
I know. I know. We've known each other over a year now, so I know. I've seen you work on different projects, things that we've collaborated on, and I know when you have that focus, even just an inch of an idea that you're interested in, it's like you at least have the curiosity. You have to dive in and at least learn about it. So, I mean, I haven't known you
Yeah,
that long, but I've seen that look in your eye where, okay, I don't have to carry it through completely to execution, but I need to see what's here.
yeah. It became
That's
very
that's the
obvious.
impression I get. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that whole multi-potentialite thing that you and I have talked about as well. I tend to quickly go deep in something to see if it is what I want to pursue or have further interest in. And being on a nonprofit board of directors has also this past year exposed me to companies and organizations that have a hard time getting their messaging across. They're all passionate, wonderful people who believe in all sorts of good causes. Uh, but marketing and like having a business head or marketing is just not their thing. Um,
Yeah. No,
and
I nod because I've come across that situation a lot where people, their mission is like the best of intentions, and not that they believe that that's enough to carry them, but they're just so focused on the heart of the work that they
right,
forget the other component. And it's it's both sides. You have to have the heart, and you have to have
right.
that strategy to get that message out. So I just keep nodding because I've seen that example so often.
Yeah, it's and they can have a much bigger impact, and they can do all the things that they want to do, and they can expand their mission and carry out their mission in a way that is helpful to society and their particular constituents, whoever they are. In my case, with the Arts Alliance, it's obviously artists and the creative community, but I've been on the board of the Direct Marketing Association, where so in that case, the constituency is marketers. Um, they, of course, did it a little, differently because they were marketers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I have just witnessed. It's like, oh, you could be doing so much better.
Yeah.
Um,
And
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 and obviously you know the ins and outs of marketing much better than I do. But you had this awakening during the pandemic, and the awakening that I've had is that just talking to people, networking, obviously virtually online,
right,
it's amazing how poor we all are, most of us, by default, at telling our own story. We're by default, like, we're not good storytellers, whether it's on an individual basis or as an organization. And that's I've just noticed that more and more, that even leadership coaching has turned that way, where people are now focusing more on telling their story, and just talking about yourself, just sharing about your day. That's not your story. It's like, what is your value? What drives you? So
right.
storytelling just plays perfectly into there, because it's just we're not primed. We're not That's not our default to really be able to show who we are, what we can do.
Right. And to tie that storytelling to a properly structured and operationally sound marketing enablement system where everyone is on the same page. And marketing to me is kind of the umbrella that holds a whole organization together. It is, with all of its components, digital, traditional, sales, all of that, it's the only function that brings money, or in the case of nonprofits, donations through the door.
Yeah.
So it's always been a puzzle to me as to it why it's been so hard for some to to not only not embrace marketing, but
Mm-mm.
not even think that they need to do it. It's like my mission alone is so wonderful that people are just gonna, like, write me checks. That just
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think a lot of it is because, I mean, I'm just spitballing here, just throwing ideas out there, but I just see it as everything else in the organization is more technical, it's more
right.
concrete, it's more black and
Yes.
white. It's not the marketing, which is conceptual, which is the human touch, which is the perception. So people see, like, anything that has to do with psychology, people see it as like the squishy stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's where they get lost, is it's maybe they find it hard, even, which is interesting, even for nonprofits, to bring that human touch into that relationship, and showing that you have that connection, that it's not all
Right.
top line, bottom line, what did you make this year versus last. I think it's that, just that personal touch that people don't regularly incorporate into their storytelling. That's where we get lost in the storytelling, is we repeat facts, we repeat situations, we repeat what happened to us, what we'd like to happen to us, what we'd like to
Right.
do, but not the, sounds cliche, but not the why, not the personal attachment
Right.
to anything.
Right. Right. And I just I s- it's so easy to do once you know what to do. I always say, especially in my book that I wrote now, oh gosh, 11 years ago, marketing is an investment, not an expense.
Mm.
You know, um, there are there there's not much else worth investing in. I mean, other than physical product, if that's what you're doing, if it's, something tangible. But that's what gets you going. I mean, and marketing is I'm stealing this quote from one of the authors of the B Corp handbook, which I've already read 3 times, which was a possible choice on the list when you asked me which book. But marketing is hygiene. It's not a quick fix. It's like brushing your teeth, right? You do it every day. You don't just do it once and then never do it again.
Very good
Okay?
point.
So
Very
it's
good point.
hygiene. Marketing is hygiene. If you are if it's something that you value and something that you put effort into, um, given the steps, it's pretty easy to incorporate operationally into your daily business, so that you don't let opportunities go by, and so that you can um, bring in more money, whether it's revenue if you're a for-profit, or whether it's donations, or sponsorships if
Yeah.
you're a nonprofit. So doing all the right things is it's not that hard. It isn't. It really isn't
Yeah.
when you know what
I
to do.
think a lot of what people need to do, regardless of what it is they need to do, whether it's marketing or leadership, is just that they have to be guided. They have to
Yeah.
be shown. They have to be made aware. And people like you in your field, people like me in my field, it's amazing how I, I don't offer anything earth shattering. I just put things in a certain way where people can see the concept, see the idea, understand it. Maybe it's not for them, but it's interpreting what we're trying to work towards. It's
Right.
just, they just need to be made aware that there's an option or a consideration out there that they should keep in mind.
Right. And marketing from way back when in the 1940s and 50s, when it became a subject matter, came out of the field of economics. So it really is everything having to do with revenue and how you drive that revenue to your bottom line. It isn't necessarily difficult, but people who do sort of the softer things that you and I do, the softer subjects,
Hmm.
um, often have trouble. Like, okay, so this thing is $5,000. How do I, how do, when am I going to see return? How is this? You need to take a long view, which
Yeah.
is also the other thing that I just love about B Corp world, which is, you know, um, that stakeholder capitalism is a long-term view. The stock market has become, how much did it gain or lose today, hour
Yes.
by hour, minute by minute, the whole day trading thing. We've become such a short-term, like immediate satisfaction society that
Yeah.
it's actually the antithesis of what we should be doing. And all of the research that I've done about this whole world is that they're actually more profitable, and they
Yeah.
actually retain employees at almost twice the rate, which is so important. And the five impacts of the whole B Chord world has to do with number one impact begins with your workers, and number five is customers.
Yeah. Yes.
So they take a completely different view, which is so appealing to me. And the numbers play out. I mean, even if you're a stats kind of person, the numbers play out. So it's I love the whole like looking at the world, looking at business from a completely different perspective. It's like turning everything inside out and upside down, and you get a better outcome. Um,
Yeah, and the only reason I looked behind me before was as you were talking about the future of marketing or what it looks like. It brought to mind this book, Quantum Marketing. I don't know if you've
I've
heard of
heard
it,
of that.
Randy. Okay,
Yeah.
by Raja Manar. And then you kept going and you talked about the short term versus the long term, and then that reminded me of the Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, where the
Right,
concept of the book is completely that short term versus long term, and
right,
it gives examples of companies
right,
that are so focused, and us personally on the
right,
individual level, we're so
right,
focused on immediate gratification, whether it's today, this quarter,
right,
versus
right.
let's play the long game. So check out those two books if you haven't.
I
They
will.
line up with what you just shared.
Yeah, I will.
So Randy, what tell me a little bit about your background. What was it? You don't have to go all the way back to day one, but what was it, whether it's education or not, college or not, what was
Yeah.
it that led you down this path to where you are now?
Good. Wow, good question. So, growing up in New York City, everybody, including my mother, got on a train and went to work every day. And, it was just office. Like that was everybody's sort of, that's where everybody went.
Yeah.
To work. There were very few. I didn't grow up with any creatives. None of my friends' parents were artists or had their own businesses. It was all very like corporate driven. And so I just, I graduated high school. I was 16 years old because I skipped a grade.
Wow.
I skipped actually a year and a half, and my birthday's at the end of the year in October. So I was 16 when I graduated high school on a Thursday. And Monday morning, I went to work as a secretary. I had 3 days off. And
Wow.
I had to. I mean, single mother, I mean, I had to work. Um, and so after working for about a year, I I was working downtown Manhattan on William Street, and Caddy Corner was Pace University. I mean, literally a block and a half away. And so I just one lunch hour, I just walked in and said, I think I want to go to college, and I enrolled myself, and I paid for everything myself while I was working. I had some help, based on grades, some tuition reimbursement, which was very helpful, of course. And it took me 9 years to get a 4-year degree because I did it at night
Yeah.
as I was working full time. So, that, and my original major that I wanted to study was sociology. And Yeah, my mother was not very happy about my choice, even though she wasn't paying for it. And so I went back to the school, and I said, okay, what's a good like business equivalent subject of sociology? And they said marketing, and I said okay, and that was kind of the decision. I mean, it really happened
Yeah. Yeah.
with, but you know,
I
I mean,
smile because I can relate where when I went to college was I came, relate in so many ways. Um, I came from a blue collar background. Nobody was exposed to college. I was the first in my family, like the
right,
traditional immigrant story. and my parents didn't want me to work in a factory like them. So I'm like, okay, what's the furthest away from a factory? And I pictured like white collar, and I'm 16 years old, a kid of immigrants. And what I decided on, based on just thinking like that, okay, what is business where I'm not in a factory? They don't want me in a factory, and what it's interweaved with psychology, and that's how I picked marketing in
Yeah,
college. So I completely get
yeah.
that selection process of sorts.
And when I made that decision, because it wasn't really a decision, it wasn't really a conscious, proactive decision. Um, but it turns out that it feeds everything that I love. I'm a Libra, so I feel very balanced between the creative side and then the more like number crunching. I had a long and very good career in direct response, which is all about measurement. Um, and so and also that was very easy for me to segue into digital because they're very aligned. The whole thought process and everything is very aligned, but I've always had this creative side to me. Although I can't draw at all. I'm the only non-artist on the board of the alliance. um, I mean, I do coloring books, but I like to write. I'm creative in different ways. A lot of the successes I've had in my career have been from developing new products and things that no one has ever thought about doing before. But yet, when I pitched them to senior management, they were like, "Oh yeah, why haven't we ever done that?" I just have a mind that thinks in, you could throw me into the biggest chaotic, tangled mess, and I will make sense of it. I'm very organized in my thinking, very process driven. So it has fed both sides of my creative curiosity and then my number crunching and whole, sort of more financial piece of it, if you will. And so that led me to move around the country. Um, and I moved to Dallas, Texas. I went to grad school there and I stayed. I loved it. And I was there for 6 years, got my MBA. And then from there, I was offered a job in Southern California to be the first general manager of a new division of a global travel company, because my background was always financial services.
Hmm.
I mean, I worked on Wall Street, I worked for banks, I worked for American Express, I worked for in Texas, I worked for Associates National Bank. Then in California, I started a credit card division. And then from there, I went into another financial services. So my whole career trajectory was somewhat satisfying, but I never really felt like I belonged in financial services. But once you start building a resume
Hmm.
and once you start having successes, that's where the job offers come from. And I was recruited into both of those positions. And they moved me and everything. So it was like, well, how do you turn this down? It's hard. It really
so
was hard.
so how long did you stay in any kind of financial or credit card services? When was it right after that you decided to kind of strike out on your own as an entrepreneur, or?
So I was living in California, and I was vice president of marketing and product development for a financial services firm. I was the director of the organization. My signature was insured for $2 million. I had a big staff, a giant budget, millions and millions of dollars I was responsible for. And I had this moment of like clarity, like the heavens opened up. Because of the work that I was doing, my team and I would have to travel the country and do training every time we launched a new product. So I was writing training manual, I was concepting, I was testing, I was rolling out, and then going and training customer service. And one day I just had this epiphany of standing on stage, giving training to like 100 customer service reps, in shifts because you can't pull everybody off the phones. Traveling, I think I was in Pleasanton, California, in Northern California. And I was like, this is what I love, you know?
Yeah.
So I went back to California and which was home. I mean, I owned a home and everything. And I reconfigured my resume to make it training oriented, as opposed to VP marketing, financial services oriented. And I sent it out to a couple of local colleges in Southern California. And first one, I was, they're like, oh God, yeah, we'd love to have you. It was a community college, and but that never came to be because the company that was the venture capital company that owned the company I was working for decided to sell us instead of going public. Okay, so instead of being wealthy, I was unemployed. We were all like laid off on the same day. And so I used that as an opportunity to move back to the East Coast, which I desperately missed. And so I landed in Connecticut. I landed in Stamford, Connecticut, actually, in another financial services job.
It's like the
And
mafia.
I was like, no. So long story short, that lasted about a year. Several of us were laid off at the same time, and I just decided this is it. This is my opportunity. I had a pretty good exit package, some unemployment and other benefits. And so I started applying for teaching jobs, and I started my consulting firm. And so that was that trajectory. And so that lasted, quite a while, which was, nice and wonderful. And that all led me here, to a more focused place of where I want to concentrate my time, efforts, and talent, and who I want to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good little mix of everything across the country, different, corporate versus, nonprofit versus working for somebody, working for yourself. That's a good mix of exposure to all these different areas. Hopefully it is working in the right direction for you where it's kind of like refining and you're getting to where, I mean, obviously it sounds like you are.
Yeah, I think the older that you get, um, the more, at least this is how it's worked for me, the more perspective I've had, and the more confident I've become in me and who I am, and I am really, really clear about who I want to work with, and the types of people and companies that I want to work with. Um, and I had the opportunity in 2020 to become part of the board, and so I sort of broadened my exposure to nonprofits, and I started seeing a lot of it's the same issues again and again and again. I mean, there isn't really anything earth shattering. It's the same things. And it just became really clear to me, that there is, a way that I can help them. And then at the same time, I started, I became aware of the whole B Chord thing, which
Hmm.
I really had never heard of. And I immersed myself in that world to such an extent that I just said, you know what, they have a lot in common. And the whole social mission thing, more and more it started becoming, um, in the news, and
Yeah.
TV commercials and broadcast, and I saw that the investments were being made in these kinds of organizations, and I have always been, for the underdog. I have always, that's why I started Affordable Marketing Solutions, was because that's where I consume. That's where I spend
Yeah.
my money, for the most part, where possible. It isn't always possible. But, I was bragging for a long time during the pandemic that, it was like 18 months before I ever had to order anything from Amazon. I
Well, that's
really
good. That's
switched,
huge.
yeah, I switched my entire, um, mindset, and I aligned in an authentic way with how I live my life and and I've always felt this way. And I tell this to my students, every time you spend a dime, you're casting a vote. And I knew who I wanted to vote for, and I knew who I wanted to support. And so everything sort of converged. And like I said, one morning I woke up and it was like, wow, finding the URL that wasn't taken was the hardest part of starting this business. Because
Yeah.
so many of them are parked and they're happy to sell it to you for $20,000, which is insane and nothing I'm ever going to do. So it
Yeah.
took about a week of, really like searching around for the right SEO phrases and how I can, use that in a URL. And that's really been the hardest part ever. Once I did that and built the website, it's been really wonderful and sort of smooth sailing from there.
That's amazing. It's great to hear, considering like the path that you took to get there, and just the work that I've seen you do over the last couple of years. I met you before you established this organization, so it's nice to see you fired up for this new phase in life.
Yeah,
If you
very,
really think about it, I mean,
very.
it took a while to get there, but I mean,
No,
even that journey, I think I've had this conversation with different people where that journey, it's like a zigzag, literally for you, a zigzag across the country, but well worth it, well worth the wait, because I mean, you wouldn't have the same appreciation for it if it was right out of the gate out of college.
absolutely. I agree with that. And these opportunities weren't even available then.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the whole mission driven thing is relatively new. B Chord didn't even start until 2008 as an idea. So, and it's still really, really new to Connecticut,
Yeah.
actually. So my whole and other personal things that converged all at the same time that sort of set me on this path. My word for the year last year was authenticity, and so it is out of that living an authentic life and supporting people, organizations, etc., that I really believe in, that led me here. And none of that, I mean, the pandemic was maybe like lit the match,
Yeah.
but it's been in me. It's been inside me for quite a while, and it
It's
took a
amazing to
while
see.
to form.
It's amazing to see in different people what the pandemic has done, what it has woken up in them. I know so many people that have started new ventures like yourself, different
Yep,
kinds of ventures. Um, so I mean, there's everything is so chaotic right now in the world with the pandemic, but I think we should take any kind of silver lining that we can see and find. But
yeah, for
but
sure.
Randy, thank you for that breakdown of your past and everything you've done to date. Why don't we jump into the book that you're going to be sharing with? So, what is the book, and
I'll hold
how
it
did you
up.
come across? Yeah,
Yep.
sure, sure.
Okay.
Okay,
So, if you can all get a good shot, not high contrast here, but
no, that's
the
good.
name of the book is Where in the Om Am I? And it's written by Sarah DeVello. It is a memoir, and I got it for,
But the full title includes One Woman's Journey from the Corporate World to the Yoga Mat.
yes,
Okay, okay. Just because I
yes.
think that adds a little flavor to the title. And I know when you told me that was the book you wanted to cover, even I was kind of like, like meaning, what is that going to bring? What is it going to share?
Yeah. So her journey. So I'll start by saying that I found this book at the Stanford Library in their book. They have a little bookshop, and it was $2. I can never ever ever leave any book sale bookstore without buying something. This one really spoke to me. um, you only see the spine on the shelves, right?
Hmm.
And what I have noticed, and this may be a whole other discussion, but I have noticed that all my favorite books lately are orange.
Could be something marketing, the psychology of
Yeah,
color. I mean, who knows?
I don't know, but all of the books like in the genre of like metaphysical stuff, yoga stuff, chakra stuff, they're all orange. It's crazy.
Look
Yeah,
at
I
that.
see you
The
have an
su-
orange one.
the subtle art of not giving an F
There
is
you go.
orange. Is orange.
Yeah, it's orange. So the color caught my eye, first of all. And then I looked at the title. I'm like, I don't even care what this is. I'm buying this book, right? And it was on my birthday when I bought this book. And I was about 10 days out from launching Marketing on a Mission. So it's just, a few months ago. And when I looked at this, and then I looked at the copyright date, which also really spoke to me. So it's copyright 2013. And 2013 was the year that the love of my life died, who he led me to this path. There is no doubt in my mind. He was a devout Buddhist, a yogi, uh, read stuff like translated from Sanskrit. I mean, the smartest human being I've ever known. And he started buying me books, and I would read his books, and we would read to each other, all like around this kind of subject matter. When he passed after a 2-year long horrible thing, is when I went to my first yoga retreat. So the year that this was published was meaningful to me as well. And so, but I didn't know that when I bought the book. Like, I was just excited to have the book, and I took myself to like go have drinks somewhere and started reading the book, and I was like halfway through the book the first time I sat down to. I couldn't even believe it.
Wow.
I actually had tickets for something that I was almost late for because I got so into the book.
Now that's a good book. How often do you come across a book like that? That's a good book.
Yeah, and her writing is amazing. And this was the first book she ever wrote. And it was nominated for, it's called the National Indie Author Award Prize. And so I started reading this, and I realized her whole life she worked in financial services. Very similar upbringing to mine, except her city is Boston. Mine was New York.
Okay.
The same thing, one job after another was financial services for her, because that's where she kept getting recruiting. She was in PR and marketing and communications. I feel like she's my sort of universal twin in the world. And I devoured this book. I mean, I finished it like within 24 hours. I finished the book.
Just out of curiosity, does she have any other books?
Yes. So I have since, of course, right? I actually sent her a LinkedIn request, but she only had about 200 connections. She's clearly not active on LinkedIn. Yeah. But so she has gone on to do podcasts. Okay. So she became a yoga instructor. So this whole book is about her journey from the path of working in an office, being in financial services, sort of hating it, but not knowing what to do next, and then being exposed to yoga as a stress relief, meditation, like take me away from the madness kind of thing, to really falling in love with the lifestyle and everything around the whole yogic life, if you will.
Yeah.
And so she has written other books, but she has started writing novels now, actually. So I'm very happy that I found this book. I have not read any of her other books, but this one will always be near and dear to my heart. And so her journey is so parallel to mine. In fact, she tells a story in this book where she was in her office, and she describes in detail the snack that she was eating. And it's the same thing that I eat when I'm on the go. It's It's almonds and dried cranberries. And I thought, oh my God, you're my twin. It was the craziest thing. Um, and
Yeah,
how
I don't know. I believe in weird connections like that.
really,
Yeah, there's just too many things that happen in life that are coincidental. I'm on the mindset. I don't know. Between that and like deja vu, I think something's going on. Um,
yeah, I've been,
I don't even know how to describe it, but I just think just one of those people that think I think that everything happens for a reason. I think connections shouldn't be overlooked, even as simple, as small, as buried in a book as something like that might be. Like all the connections you have to this book. I mean, I believe in that kind of energy. Like that's good energy. I mean, that's what we should all be seeking out is like these kind of connections in the world.
absolutely. And it was that I found it on my birthday. Um, and that it spoke so much to me, and where I was at the exact fork in that day. I was at the exact fork in the road of leaving everything else behind and knowing that Marketing on a Mission was going to launch. I had somebody doing some last minute things on the website, and I had some other people testing and doing some, user kind of testing on the site. Um, and So I knew that I was going to launch like within a week or so. And it ended up being about 12 days later that I launched.
Yeah, that's incredible. So for
Perfect
this
timing.
one, for this one, because it's a memoir, like what is that trajectory of, yeah, she's going from corporate to yoga, but what does that look like in between? Like what kind of, I don't know, experimentation, what kind of things was she trying, or what were the subtle little aha moments she would have from, every so often that led her down to that path, knowing that she was on the right path? Or what did that journey look like for her, I guess?
Well, so for her, like me, it was immersion in a whole different world, a world that was calmer, gentler, a world that spoke to her in a way that, working for like a big brokerage and financial services company doing their PR, didn't. um, and it was it questioned, just like I have. Um, it She questioned a lot of her core beliefs as a result of this. So when you get on the mat, you are supposed to be completely like nothing else. You don't think about anything else. Um, this is it is all like internal power. Yoga, you don't use weights, you don't use machines, it's all you, right? You have to really be very centered. And I've said this, even before we're discussing this now, but daily yoga and meditation, without it during the pandemic, I don't really know where I would be right now. It
Is that
has
how often you
literally
practice it,
saved.
Randy? You do it every day?
Yeah, yeah, and I try different challenges and I follow different yoga instructors. And since since 2013, until the pandemic, like every year, I was doing a yoga retreat in the summer or the fall. Um, and I have been When I'm there at this one particular place, um, it feels like an alternate universe, a better one for me, a better fit for me. I have always been incredibly type A plus, like serious
I love what
hyperventilating.
I love when people add that plus.
Oh my God,
Type
plus.
A plus. Like I know a few people that are like that. I love
Oh
that.
gosh. I will say that when I was in my 20s and I was working on Wall Street, I started having heart palpitations and like, oh my God, I'm going to die of a heart attack. So I went to my doctor, and she said, I'm going to solve all your problems right now. She literally I was wearing a watch. She took the watch off my wrist, went like this, dumped it in her trash can, and said, this will solve most of your problems. And since that day, I have never worn a watch again. And she was absolutely right. Okay.
Wow.
It is my, I don't know where I got this from. I mean, obviously it's in my DNA from someplace, but I just was always so type A. Everything had to happen right now. Every bad habit. I mean, I've calmed down, believe it or not, quite a bit. I'm going to say type A minus. I'm working on being a type B plus,
I don't know if I could
trying
see
to
you
go
being a
down.
type B. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know because I've seen you so often go off and explore, like you're just you meet people and you maybe you don't know them for that long, but you get a sense of how they are. And you just always seem to me like you're going to, march to the beat of your own drum kind of thing, which isn't a bad thing at all. But I can't
No.
see you being type B and waiting for somebody else. I think I've always expected you to kind of get the most out of life and what you're working on, and in
Yeah.
all honesty, not half-ass anything.
No, no. I have but I have come over the years of my yoga practice and books and memberships at yoga studios and all of that, the whole like thought process and mindset is um, not to give up who you are at all. That isn't the goal at all, but it's to learn how to deal with and process things in a way that is kinder for yourself and for the world. And I have learned to um, observe and not absorb, which was a really big, I'm an empath also, which was a really big problem for me my whole life. I would absorb everything. I've always been very porous.
Yep.
Uh, and and took a lot of things to heart, and I would get like, why don't you see that this is wrong, which a lot of people she talks about this too, the author. A lot of people think it's preachy, but it isn't. It's just, it comes from a place of passion, and this is how I see the world working in a better way. And not everybody sees that. Not everybody thinks like that.
When you say people think it's preachy, specifically, what do they think is preachy?
That so for example, when I talk about, and I say this on my website now, that this whole like activism thing just gripped me, during the pandemic. I could have gone off and started, and with good friends I do talk about it, but I'd rather do something about it,
Yeah.
right? And so to say and not act is disingenuous,
Yeah.
and it doesn't serve anyone well. um, I had to come to a place where I was like this, like everything was sort of aligned, like the universe, and for me, this business and the name of it and the people that I'm dealing with and my clients um, are exactly aligned with me,
Got to be
or
an
I'm
amazing
aligned with
feeling.
them. I don't know, but we are of the same mindset, that there are some really really big societal problems that need to be solved, that the institutions that we have entrusted, whether it be politicians, whether it be, healthcare, whether it be, whatever it might be, to solve these problems, are not doing that.
Yeah.
So to be mission driven, or some people call it purpose driven, is to be, if that's in you. For those who it isn't, it isn't. But if it's in you, um, to align that with every piece of your life, not just your personal life and your friends and the movies you see and the restaurants you eat at, and but your business life. And that was always, like her, um, a disconnect for me. I felt like, not that I wasn't qualified, because I was very qualified and very successful.
Mhm.
But I always felt a little, like, again, being a Libra, kind of out of balance between
Oh
my
yeah. Yep.
personal, and my business life was not aligned in that way. And I these words weren't even in my head way back then, but I just knew inside that it's like, oh my God, I don't, and you just keep getting promoted, and then headhunters, and you just keep taking new jobs and chasing jobs around the country,
Yeah, I
which is
mean,
what I did.
it's that societal script that's laid out in front
Right,
of you. I mean,
right,
you think about going to college to get a career, to move up the ladder, and a lot of people that I've worked with, they've done just that. But
right,
when they give up their passion, not even consciously, but when they're following that script
right,
from place to place, they're not thinking, am I taking myself along with that?
right,
Am I taking myself along with those steps, or am I just going through the motions and fulfilling a job description or a hierarchy chart or an org
right,
chart, and they get lost? And then if I work with them and they get to the point where they feel happy again, it's because they may still have those same kind of jobs, but they've
right,
infused more of who they used to be into
right,
that mindset, into that
right,
existence, into that
right.
job. It's just uh, you just said so much in the last couple minutes that just resonated, from like the Libra
Yeah.
to where we just do too much, we do it to ourselves, we
Well,
overcomplicate
that's right.
everything.
You're a
Like,
Libra too. That's right.
yeah,
I forgot that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I can relate in terms of the way that you look at things and why you're doing it and slowing down. And the pandemic really did that to me, to me as well. I mean, it looks differently for both of us, but I mean, it really forces you to um, reconsider what you've always thought.
right.
We're going on 2 years now, Randy. It really
Next
forces you
month
to
will be 2 years. That's right. I know. It's frightening to think that it's called COVID-19, and now we're like COVID-22.
COVID-22. But
So
but
it,
I
it
I get that point completely. That I mean, we've just the fact that your doctor said take the watch off. I mean, we have just overcomplicated everything. So we're keeping busy instead of looking for those things that really
right,
fulfill us. And
right,
yeah, I can
right.
just, it resonates with me is all
Yeah,
I really have to say. Yeah.
yeah. And it was a whole. It was kind of a reset for me. Um,
Yeah.
not not a complete change, because it's always been in me, but it never manifested itself in a way that was outwardly toward society.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
no, I know
you
exactly what you mean. Yeah.
meditate, you do yoga, especially the last 2 years, at home, you read at home, you do these things at home. Um, but how I really struggled for a long time, um, even pre-pandemic, right? This has been in me for a while. But how do I that's why authenticity was my word for 2021. It took me almost the whole year until, right, like August, when I woke up with this idea in my head. I literally had this name in my head. Um,
Well, the tricky part is, I mean, you could sit there and have the best of intentions to be authentic. But if something hasn't triggered that idea in you and you don't have that day in August when you wake up and say, this is it,
right.
you may want to be authentic, but then you're like, holy shit, okay, so what am I going to be authentic about? What is it that draws the best out of me? And it took you a
Right.
while to even figure that out.
It took um I'm not going to say too long, because that then is disrespectful of my path.
Yes.
Every experience adds to where you are today and brings you to where you are today. But I look at, like, I have a client right now who is young, and in her 30s, early 30s. Um, she is so clear, so focused, and so clear about her passion, and I have such admiration for her, and her drive, and how much she loves. Like I never really loved what I was doing until now.
Randye, I got another book for you.
Okay.
Latebloomers. I think I've mentioned this to
Oh
you
yeah.
before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Latebloomers by Rich Karlgaard.
Yeah.
And it goes, it breaks down the difference between the people that know, hopefully that client that you have knows that, or
Yeah.
what she knows really is it. And then people like you and I that like later in our career is when we're trying to find our spark. And the
Mojo.
thing is, like you said, our mojo, and like you said, I wouldn't trade all that time for anything. Because
Yeah. It's
if you said I was going to be a leadership performance coach and hosting a podcast like this in my 20s, I wouldn't have all those experience from my 20s, 30s, and some of my 40s
right.
to be the person that I am right now with
Right.
that appreciation of all that, whether it was good stuff, bullshit, all of that makes who I am today. So,
Right.
would I have liked, but the good thing is about being that late bloomer is that you hit it when you hit your stride, you hit it with such a passion that's always been there. The trickiest part for me has been finding it, but that energy has always been there. And
Same.
it's been
Same.
transformative. It's been transformative to finally be able to tap into what that inner energy actually is.
And how to channel it,
Yes.
because, and I know we've talked about this too before, about being multi-potentialites and having so many interests is both a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that I am never bored. I have, my brain is always creating, thinking, and trying new things. But then you come to a point, like there's an intersection where I finally figured out finally figured out how to bring all of this together in a way that feeds my soul and can pay the mortgage. And that has not been an easy path. And so, like you just said, because it has taken time, uh, uh, it's even sweeter now.
Yes.
The taste of this, like my success so far since October, it's only been 3 months, um,
Yeah.
has tasted even sweeter because I know without a doubt, clearly, absolutely, that I am on the right path and doing absolutely the right thing. And what I find in my teaching, which, it exercises different parts of my brain and my skill set, is that I also bring a lot of like I remember once, it was the end of the semester and students were like freaking out about this presentation that they had to do. So I turned on my meditation app on my phone, and I left it in the classroom. I walked out, I closed the door, I let them have, I listened like at the door for the bell, like I just did a quick 3 minute, meditation. And I swear it made such a huge difference for them. So I bring this to the classroom. And the fact that yoga is such an internal thing, you usually do it alone. You're not like, um, competing with anyone except yourself. Who, for me, my take on this is that I am, I'm always trying to best myself. Um, and it's very humbling to not be able to hold a really complicated pose, let's say for a full 2 minutes.
Mhm.
It's really humbling. It's actually much easier to lift weights.
I
It's
believe it.
easier to increase, the number of pounds you lift than it is to literally hold your own weight in a pose without falling out for a full 2 minutes. It's become not just a physical challenge, but an internal mental slash spiritual challenge, and it has tapped into things inside of me that I never knew existed. And it's funny because she, like me, total rebel. Often she describes several scenes in the book where she's recalling meetings that she was at, where she's the only woman in the room. That happens like very frequently,
Hmm.
for me, always has. And how like the whole male female energy thing, um, and and it's interesting because she had one of the same realizations that I did, which is the older I get, the less I talk.
Yeah.
And it's because I always felt that I had to compete with everybody else in the room to be heard. Because, again, often being the only female and almost always being the youngest in the room as well, um, was I always felt like I had to talk a lot to convey my point of view, which, as we all know, when women do that, is never a good thing. It took me
Hmm.
a lifetime, literally an adult lifetime, to learn that lesson. And it was interesting when I read her story, how it's like parallel. I swear we are like universe twins. It's crazy. And it's interesting. I now talk, not on purpose, and
Yeah.
I never did this consciously either. But just before this, I was on a Zoom for an hour meeting, and I did not speak very much. And it isn't because I never had bad listening skills, because I always did have good listening skills, but I was never just confident enough in who I was to be able to just not talk. I don't have to continue to prove with words coming out of my mouth my capabilities and who I am. Now I'm in the room because I was invited. And it's a very different feeling. And I don't have to be that type A plus in your face. These
Yeah.
are the 85,000 things I can do for you, because you now already know that.
Yeah.
And I'm also willing to admit that there's probably 85,000 things I don't know how to do. But you know what? I can research them and I'll look into it and I'll get back to you.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I can't speak to the experience that you had as a woman, but um, when you feel that confidence enough after all your experiences and whatnot, where you feel that confidence where you don't have to speak, that I can relate to. But I can only appreciate, um, yeah, I can never be in those shoes where I know what that feeling is, being the only woman in a meeting and feeling that way. But um, it's good that you get to this place where you understand what your value is and how to convey it.
Yeah, confidence
And
is
you're right, confidence can be silenced too.
I believe now. It's funny that I've arrived at where I am now. When I'm in a meeting, what of course they're all Zoom, right? But still, when you're in a meeting and there's 30 other people, um, who fights to talk, who talks over other people, who is it's interesting. I've
Oh
made
yeah.
I've made a lot of just internal observations, and it's probably because I can relate to so much of it, and it's interesting to see my path, my growth, my evolution, the changes that I have been led to make. Nobody forced me to do this. Nobody said you have to do this, you have to start doing yoga, you have to start doing all this, um, but but I was spurred on by my love, whose
Hmm.
name was Eddie, and he introduced me to this world, and it just felt like I belonged. And the exploration and all the things that I have been doing since he passed. First of all, I know he's very proud of me. That's the first thing. Um, and there is the a piece of me that is uh, that too was a later in life love, because I'm divorced. I was married years ago, in California actually, uh,
Hmm.
but again, the path, the whole, what the universe brings to you is often what you need when you need it.
Oh, that's a
You may fight
conversation
it.
in and of itself. That's
Yeah. You may fight it. You may say no. Oh God, when like meditating. Oh, I can't calm my mind. Blah, blah, blah. I've tried this before. It doesn't work. You can fight it all you want, but
yeah,
once that spark is inside of you, and then then it became a challenge. It's like, God damn it, I'm gonna learn how
yeah.
to meditate
So Randy,
because
we've gone through so much. So specifically in a few sentences, how would you lay out your major takeaways from the book that apply to your leadership, your work, your business? What are a couple sentences that show your specific takeaways?
so one of them is definitely the idea of balance. um, that you can, during the yoga training that she went through, it was like a year-long thing, to get, like, it's a certificate. You weren't supposed to drink alcohol. Okay, like that became a doctrine to her, like a dogma thing. She's like, no, I don't accept that. I can do yoga in my own way. If I want to have a drink with my husband on a Saturday night when we're out having dinner, I'm going to have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
So that there's like a balance. Nothing is absolute. That's the other thing. Life, I always used to be very black and white. I'm now mostly gray and shades of gray.
Hmm.
um, and there's a whole wide range of ways to behave that take the good, but yet you adapt them, to your own needs, and that again is authentic, right, to who you are. um, and so that was one lesson that I took away, is the whole thing about moderation and balance. That was definitely one thing. The other thing is quiet. We live in a very noisy world. Everything beeps, everything makes noise, lots of intrusion. To be able to be quiet amongst all those things, like sometimes I'm doing yoga or meditating and cars honking, or a car alarm goes off, or I hear a neighbor's dog barking. You cannot live in a bubble. You must be able to adapt and to be authentic to yourself in the world and the constraints that it puts upon us. That's another big lesson that I learned, and that transfers to leadership, especially now with COVID.
Hmm.
Students, I'm if any of my future students watch this, I'm more lenient than ever, but in a tough sort of way. you
Yeah.
know uh, if you can't do the work, or you have whatever, life, work, children, family, whatever your obligations are, on top of school, on top of that, we're in a pandemic, that's fine, but you just need to communicate with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All I ask is the respect. And I always say I have a lot of talents, but mind reading isn't one of them. You need to tell me, right? You need to communicate and verbalize with me, or email me or something.
Yeah.
um, so I've become a more compassionate person because of all of this as well. And I think from like looking at my future, where I see myself going is definitely more in the direction and in alignment with the things I've always believed in, but never had the courage really to just like step out and do them in the way that I'm doing them now. I had the courage to write a book. I had the
Yeah.
courage to start another business. I had the courage to move around the country several times. But all of those things were external. This is grounded in me and so internal that it is in my core now.
I mean, that makes all the difference. Um, I can relate to that too. I mean, and what's interesting is I've told people like in the last couple of years that things have changed for me, but not really. Where it's kind of like I'm still doing the same things, I'm still helping clients in the same kind of ways,
Right,
but it's how I look at them that's changed my mental health. Because
right,
after a while, the
right.
pandemic was just catching up with me. And like I said, I'm a little more selfish with my time, a little more
Very.
selfish with my energy, but nothing is suffering in terms of what's given to other people. It's just the way that the
Right.
lens through which I look at what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Right. There's another book that I read probably about 4 years ago. It's called The Empath Survival Guide, which is also orange. uh, and there's a sentence in that book. No is a complete sentence. Changed my
Yeah,
life. In fact, I wrote an article on Medium about it, about the word no. The
yeah,
word no is one of my favorite words now. I never said no. I was always worried that I would disappoint somebody, that I would rather stress myself out, to say yes to everything and make everybody else happy when then I was the one that suffered for it. Once I realized, like, that sentence really changed my life. I am, like you, far more discerning now, the things that I say yes to, where I put my time and energy. Um, of course, our social lives aren't nearly as chock full as they used to be with the pandemic.
yeah,
We'll see what happens and how I readapt, to that. But again, for me, being an only child is I always felt I needed the approval of others, and I don't. I mean, in certain circumstances, yes, of course,
yeah,
we live in a
yeah,
society where,
yeah.
we don't live in a
It's not that it's not
silo.
that no one can care, no one cannot care about what other people think. It's just you
Right.
do it in a healthy way, on a case by case
Exactly.
basis, monitoring your
Exactly.
own health before anything else.
Exactly. And I have learned to say no in a compassionate way, which is something that I never thought saying no was compassionate at all. I always had
Yeah.
to say yes. No, thank you very much, but no, I'm not able to take that on at this time.
Hmm.
And be compassionate about it, but be protective of your own
Exactly.
emotional health.
Exactly. So
It's
Randy
like
is
putting the thing on before you save somebody else on the airline,
yes.
it's the exact same
It's
thing.
another that's another cliche that I'm always throwing out there, but it makes sense. It makes complete sense.
Right.
And that desire to want people to like us or not be let down by us if we say no, that's like that toxic positivity. Like I'm gonna
Yes.
make things work. I'm gonna make things work. I'm gonna make things work.
Right.
Meanwhile, you're crashing and burning inside or stressed out or it's you got to be very careful with your you can be your own worst enemy in so many different ways,
Oh,
and
I
that's one of
was.
them.
For so many years, I was.
So Randy, in wrapping up, is there anything else you want to share or mention about what you're up to these days, or obviously the work that you're doing, your website, whatever it may be?
Yeah, so everyone is more than welcome. I invite you to visit marketingonamission.com, and also, find me on LinkedIn. I've become very, very active with a group of people that I've met, and it's been wonderful. I have just finished Well, I just finished one big client project. I'm working on another one right now. One is a sustainability expert. The other one is a sustainable sustainably responsible investing financial advisor. And I finished a project for him, and actually we're talking again on Thursday about another project. Um,
Awesome.
I have another lead of an organic skincare company. So and it's funny, it's like all these things that I believe in. And my values are totally aligned now with my clients, where I'm not just going through the motions,
Yes.
but I'm truly invested in their success in a way that is it's deeper than it was with affordable marketing solutions. I always cared. I was always
Of
very
course.
passionate, but but it just feels a little different now. It feels a little more authentic, a lot more authentic actually. And who knows? I'm doing writing. I'm doing my board work. Who knows where things will lead. I just know that I feel really, really positive about 2022 from my own perspective, and the things that I know that I have sort of simmering on the burner right now. And who knows? Maybe another book. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's an amazing feeling to know once you kind of have like that North Star of what you're all about, what really drives you. It's like
Right.
you don't really need to have obviously business goals, yeah, but you don't really need to have like this die-hard goal of what you want to see. You're more almost confident in just making sure that you're working in the right direction, using that gauge to make sure that you're not veering
Right.
off that path. And just it opens up a lot of doors when you really understand yourself more. Like you're better in the external when you're deeper and better in the internal. So I'm
Perfect.
happy that's happened for you.
That's perfectly stated, and that's exactly how I feel. I feel rooted yet flexible. I
Yes.
feel focused yet open. I feel very driven yet relaxed enough that I know that these things are going to come to me. Um, and it's all a jumble of, might sound like people might listen to this and say, but those are all opposite things, but they're not. Inside of
Yeah,
me, they're not. They're not. They all led me here, and they will take me to where I am supposed to be next.
that's amazing.
Hmm.
Randy, thank you for sitting down with me on this conversation on the
Thank
book.
you,
Where in
John.
the Om Am I? One Woman's Journey from the Corporate World to the Yoga Mat. Um, if there's anything that I might have missed, anybody listening and watching this, we're limited on time. So much to cover, so many questions to ask. But if there's anything that I might have missed that you're curious about, send me a message. I'll relay it to Randy if there's anything that is outstanding that maybe I could have touched upon. In any case, thank you for watching and listening, wherever you're watching and listening. And again, Randy, thank you so much. And I'll be seeing you. I mean, we see each other on social media, on LinkedIn every day. So
Yep.
we'll be in touch. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Bye.
Thank you.